We're recording. Welcome back to the official YouTube channel of Call of Duty Zombies Forums. I'm NaBrZHunter, and with me is just Mattz. If you're confused by the podcast or Toten thing, just a little bit of history that actually I don't even know that whole much about because it was before my time. But there was a CODS Forums podcast ages and ages past that some ancients still remember, and that I carry on the legacy of to a certain extent. And so we call this podcast our Toten in the spirit of what once was. So it's almost like an uncopyrighted, unpatented podcast title that is used by Codsers. So that's who we are.
It's the history. I know I've heard it. Heard of what was it?
I think it was run by Flamenwerther back in the day. Flamenwerther?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I do remember that name.
Just legends, man. Legends. Yeah. All right. So welcome to podcast Der Toten Mattz. It's an honor to be doing this.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Though I gotta say, this is so much better than it used to be. Oh my goodness! Did you ever hear about the ancient order of the Keepers?
Did I what?
Or hear about the ancient order of the Keepers?
Yes, I think.
Right. Did you hear about the one from Shadows of Evil or the one from the CODS community?
Let's see. I think the one from Shadows of Evil.
Okay, because dude, speaking of throwback moment, do you remember that talk about the chanting and everything down in the sewers and whatnot of Shadows of Evil underneath or something underneath the city?
I think
was the Keepers.
Yeah, was that in the what is it, the reporter radios or something like that?
I think so.
Because that was one of the things that I think I even mentioned last time was what was the whole cult that was associated with them underground. And I don't know, it always seems like because I guess the first couple maps are always early in development, and probably a year or two before the game's released, and then the DLC maps are probably right before release or something, so by then they've already changed the direction of the story. Because it always happens. I feel like it always happens. I think the best example is with Kino, where Richtofen, unless he's lying, but it's oh, where did Samantha go off to, and where's Group 935? And then it's oh, you were directly responsible for all of that.
I tell you what, dude, this inconsistency, it keeps us busy here because, if it wasn't for things like that happening, there was some theory that I came up with yesterday. So I think someone else as well. It might have been you and I. I started to get you and Rad confused for some reason.
That's fine.
I think maybe it's the color of your names in Discord. So one of you two I was talking to about how something like Richtofen being honest or how he's what was it? He's honest more often than you think. The Ultimus Richtofen is honest more often than you think because he's arrogant. So he'll say things and then be like, "Oops," or and he meant to say that. He's just feeling everybody.
Yeah, out. I think I was there for that, but that might have been Rad. I feel like I remember that conversation. Yeah. It's weird. I feel like Richtofen or Ultimus is the one that you can trust more so. Just because
are you with me on that?
Yeah, because I think he's so insane that there's no filter, and it's just kind of what you see is what you get. There's probably just a bar of just not caring too.
Dude, I am so with you. That is
yeah, because I think it'd be a neat reversal if it's still the new whoever this Primus Richtofen came from in Alpha or Omega. I keep wanting to say Ancient Evil. I don't know why. But anyway, for Alpha Omega, I feel I wonder if they're going to swap it and Primus will then betray, and then actually Ultimus Richtofen is going to be the one to save the day, or so some a weird redemption arc or something.
Dude, the two of us will be the only ones I think not surprised. maybe there's got to be more people in our camp, but that's kind of what I was saying in that discussion was I would be almost satisfied with the Aether story fully wrapping up if it ended that way with Richtofen finally if he just gets almost I said I want to see Richtofen shivering with fear. Because we were talking about the Richtofen's probably actually maintaining this cycle because he's afraid of death, which brings that whole feeling of the story that has been here from the beginning to a head. This whole like it's really truly deep, despite all the silliness and the tropiness. Like there's this really deep, very human motivation behind it all. It's just one man with a lot of knowledge and a lot of insanity and desperation, just trying to stay alive.
Which is why it's like, I think what would be sort of telling is that, maybe you have like the two sides to Richtofen where like maybe that's more of like the Primus, but like Ultimus just doesn't care anymore. And it's like, it would be neat to kind of just see him like save the day, but not actually save it for any like altruistic reasons. It's just like, whatever.
Dude, I would love to see a showdown between the two of them when Ultimus just decides he's done with it and Primus decides to fight him over it.
Well, see, this also got me thinking I guess it ties into the teaser. What's weird is, you notice Ultimus Dempsey is swapped with Primus when they're all sitting together?
They were talking about that. Is there a fast way I can pull up that? Can you drop that picture in the chat while we're talking? Or do you know where that is?
Yeah, I can always just like Google teaser.
So you said Ultimus, Primus, and
So it's like in the first teaser, because these were the three questions that I had. The first one was Primus, Dempsey, and Ultimus Dempsey are swapped. And like, most of the time it's like, okay, maybe, it's just, there's no reason, but I don't know, because it's Treyarch and because you have stuff like, what was it, in the Wii version of Black Ops, them talking about like Mao's Great Leap Forward, which is just like so bizarre and random. And then the next game installment, there's Die Rise. But anyway, so, and then with the whole idea of maybe like some are going to betray or there's going to be some weird shifting of like groups. I don't know. Then the other thing was, it's funny because I do think this is significant now because it's at 1:15. So at 1:15, you notice, I think it's Ultimus Nikolai because he's the only one who looks like he has cuffs on his, his suit.
Yeah.
And he's pouring a drink, but it's not vodka, it's wine. Which is just so weird. I mean, I guess it's maybe like
Ultimus Nikolai is pouring wine. Interesting.
Yeah, because I swear it's the cups. I mean, if you have it right there, you go through again. Because if you look at the one where they're all sitting around the campfire, none of them look like they have cuffs around their what was it? Their sleeves. And then when you get to 1:15 where they're pouring a drink, and it looks like it's from like a first-person perspective, but it's wine. So unless like, I don't know, Primus is like his sponsor or something, like it's weird, especially with like there's no vodka, and especially since it's at 1:15. I mean, maybe it's like symbolic of sacrifice or something. But I was like, why is there wine there? That's like so. So I think that's significant. Points of evidence where it's like, how the hell did they think that far back? And then it's like, okay, they clearly, the whole like the zombies saying Sam, and they're like, oh, we'll make a story out of this. So I don't know. I mean, if it's Call of the Dead, I mean, there has to be some other part of the map. So maybe we're going to the house or something. Like maybe that's involved in the Easter egg. I don't know.
I think that's probably inevitable, and it's entirely possible that I guess this also has a super Easter egg. I mean,
that would maybe that's will be somehow related to the if they do the Victus like Chronicle deal, Chronicles 2 thing.
When was the last time we had a super Easter egg? Was it Moon? Which I feel like was the one and only time.
There was a super Easter egg. Was there a super Easter egg? Oh, because you needed the devices. I always think of Black Ops 2, right? Because wasn't there the end game? You had to get the nav cards or something like that.
Oh yeah, but that one never came to be.
Yeah, but I thought.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. No, you mean buried when the
buried. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
buried. Yeah, you're right.
Buried because you had the if you did the max, I guess you had the the pylons, and whoever had the I think it was at 3 active, then would
so
begin.
That's true. That was a super Easter egg.
Which is then weird because then Black Ops 3 didn't have it, which I thought it was going to have it. And I don't know. Black Ops 4's development, I think, has been such a mess that I wonder what is and isn't scrapped. I mean, like, it's sort of unrelated, but like even looking at the personalization screen for like the zombies characters, they still have the 2 groups of chaos, and then they have Primus, but they don't have Ultimus or the one-off DLC characters to like customize. So it just feels like so much of it was scrapped. Like whatever they had planned for zombies, especially the whole running gag is factions and stuff like that. Like, so
You're right.
I don't know if that also means the super Easter egg is or isn't going to be a part of this. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they just kind of like stripped everything else and decided to put all of their time and resources into just like the final Aether map, because they are definitely teasing the hell out of it.
Yeah, no kidding. One a day. That's almost intimidating to me as someone who's trying to keep up with it now.
Yeah.
Um, though I've got this weird feeling about Black Ops 4. I remember the end of Black Ops 3 being exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
I never did Gorod Krovi because of that level of exhaustion. Of course, I did Zetsubo no Shima Dark, which was incredibly stressful and incredibly rewarding, but incredibly stressful too. And by the time Gorod Krovi came out, I was not only burned out of the kind of whole atmosphere of the community, but by the stress, like there's stress emanating from California. Like it's just rolling around the world, like straight out of Treyarch Studios. And I don't think I'm the only one who could feel that. And so I feel like there might be a different kind of stress now, but Blundell used a phrase at the beginning of this season, which I thought both I scoffed at a little bit, and then ironically it seems to have become this way again. He said zombies is very punk rock. And I went, no, it's a cash cow now. But it feels like I feel very Black Ops-ish this year around, like Black Ops 1.
Yeah, I think what did it was classified. Like there were a lot of things that were, like I said, the whole Black Ops 4 was a mess, but I think one of the, at least the positives, was that Classified really felt like the old, like you said, like the Black Ops maps with Ultimus. Because even though we had Chronicles, I don't know. I mean, I guess because it was just a almost one-to-one remake, there wasn't really anything new, and I guess it was just sort of like, because you're just retracing your steps, you kind of maybe like just associate it with like Black Ops and Black Ops 2, whereas like Classified was something sort of new, and it just seemed like whatever that magic was, they got back. But now I have no clue. With, again, there was supposed to be like the 2-year development cycle. Is that done? Well, I mean, it's definitely done, but I don't know how that affects the future of the series.
And someone had pointed out the other day, they said the end of the Black Ops 4 Ether story.
Yeah.
Could this whole thing, like maybe their staff, the zombie staff, got chopped in half, and Treyarch was like, well, we're not going to be able to tell everything that we want to tell this time around, so...
Yeah, I almost wonder if I don't know if some of that. I mean, the downsizing I can't speak to, but it almost felt like some of that happened in Black Ops 3, because surely it felt like Revelations. There was some build up to like a super Easter egg, and like I can't imagine that was just something that they dropped the ball with, or they just forgot. Like there had to have been, and then with the whole like Chronicles, like it felt weird that it was only some of the maps, and it just now splitting the maps between 2 games. Like there must have been it just or it had to have been that they had all this planned, but because of like development cycles, they just have to keep shoveling it to the new game. And I know for a fact, I shouldn't say fact, but I'm guessing that they're probably going to continue zombies again, and whatever happens in this is technically, I wouldn't even consider it a reboot, because it's still going to be a continuation of the story. Like if they reset the universe and then that sets the stage for like the next game, I still see that as a continuation of the Aether story.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, because like I don't know if they're ever really going to do like a hard reboot where nothing is actually connected, and but I don't know. It's weird. There was so much potential. Well, because I mainly play on PC now too, and like there was even talks when they had the like official Discord. I swore there was one comment or something by like one of the moderators that mentioned that it was like, oh, it's wrong to say there's like no infrastructure for mods on the BattleNet. So it just seemed like there was so much that was going to go into it, and I have no clue. Because I don't think you can even use the custom paint in zombies mode. So it's just like, yeah, but for one of my guns it shows up. So it's just like this weird, I don't know what has been scrapped and what hasn't. And
Dude, as someone in the tech industry, I'm in IT, and
Uh-huh.
this seems just all too familiar. This whole like elaborate plan. Everyone's excited. The year starts gung ho. Everyone goes, and at the last minute, this a detached manager walks in. And he's like, "Hey, I need you three," and the remaining three are like, "Oh, okay. So where was he last? I'll message him." The other guy doesn't get back for a week. Get back to them for a week. He's like, yeah, sorry, I'm working on the new project. I can just it is just a part of the industry. I feel like to over plan, no matter.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that we over plan every single time because I feel like there's never enough time to actually accomplish the dreams, the ideal goal. So I mean, I can see that entirely being a possibility. It gives me a good feeling to a certain extent because, like I said, that sort of punk rock thing, it feels a little bit slightly abandoned right now.
So yeah, maybe there's some, it'll be revitalized to some extent or something.
I think so. I mean, I think when you narrow down it's kind of like when it's kind of like what's happened to CODs. I mean, we started off big, we grew and grew and grew. Then I feel like CODs got to a point where it was bloated. It kind of burst everywhere, and YouTubers came out of it, and Reddit began to grow, and we began to lose popularity to Reddit, and it boiled down really, really tight. But what remains of it, what is there right now, is very much it's quality. Like it's gold. Our people now are gold, and
so it's like a cleansing, or like a phoenix will rise from the ashes, I guess. But
exactly.
It feels weird because like I've enjoyed Black Ops 4 for like what I have, but it definitely feels unfinished, and just it's so weird like how they even mentioned all the customization features or something that were coming for like the zombies characters, and that was just dropped. And like I don't know, it's bizarre. Like thankfully at least like the core maps and like the core experience is still there, but all the other things that every installment I hope that they expand upon, it just feels like this one was kind of dropped. And it's weird because the last installment when it was on Steam, it had mods, and it's like, okay, well, like I hopefully there's no going back, and here we are, and now we don't have mods. Like there are some really nice maps that made for Black Ops 3, that my friends and I played. Usually just go through like what is the highest rated. So it definitely extends the lifespan of the game. I guess it's just harder with a game like COD where it's like every year something's coming out. So maybe the community doesn't really have time to grow, where I guess it sort of worked out for World at War because there hasn't been.
Well, there was a really long dry spell between World at War and Black Ops.
Yeah,
so,
Black
I mean,
Ops.
There was a lot of opportunity for that custom community to grow.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a shame. So it's kind of just like, I guess the big question is, it ties into every aspect of the series. It's like,
no kidding.
What's really going on behind closed doors? Because that's like another one of the things that I've noticed. I mean, I think at least it was a little more consistent in Black Ops 2, but like they went from having sort of like a comic style intro, and then to like fully 3D. Like it was weird that DeRisenDrock, was it? Yeah, DeRisenDrock, right? That had the comic intro, and then the next one was like, and it's weird because I always feel like there's some strange departure between the first DLC and the second DLC, and it's like the first one is introduced with a comic, and then the second one now you have like a cinematic, and like something always happens. So I don't know, and it seems like it really happened this go
around. And of
around.
course, we're all jumping on the theory train with that and be like, okay, so what does it mean when it's a comic? And what does it mean when it's a live action? Go figure.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like we've been a podcast unto ourselves right now without even touching the teasers. One final thought on that is I keep thinking, like, if only like Treyarch would turn to groups like ours and to hear out, because we have so many. I mean, they are building things, and so in a lot of ways you can't blame them if things are forgotten. They do an incredible job keeping up with a lot of it, but it is the little like inconsistencies that keep happening. My favorite being McCain. But like if if they'd been in touch with some of the people who were really really deep into that, I mean, even someone who was big back in the day, like Mystery Machine X, who was insisted on the fact that he was Peter McKay. That's something that might not have been missed. But at the same time, my brain starts to go to this place where it's like, oh, if we could, kind of be archivists, that they could go to and we could keep resources for them. But if we did, I feel like if we were feeding them information straight like that, it would be disappointing to see everything that we discuss show up. I mean, it's kind of contrary to what I think the YouTubers kind of are going for, where it's like, hey, I'm going to predict the next thing, and oh, look, it's there. For me, it's like, it'd be like, oh, darn it, you literally just took my idea and didn't get creative with it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to really say because I've always sort of like popped in and out. I always got the sense that I think to some extent Treyarch is listening, and maybe now they have multiple avenues with Reddit and YouTube. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there were some things that were just added to the game and some directions that were taken that like they had to have taken note of like what people were saying online, because it just seems too weird that those sort of story elements were later incorporated.
Do you feel like, I mean, are you talking about things, are you excluding like the things that the YouTubers were talking about? I mean,
that is sort of broad. I guess what I meant was like, and I guess I'm talking about probably the Activision forums, the Call of Duty Zombies forums. But I remember what was it? Like some of the zombie enemy types and sort of expanding from just being like zombies to sort of having like robots and all these other things. Like I remember sort of people talking about that, and I don't know. It just, sure. I mean, it could be easily said. Like someone was just like, oh, we'll just add robots. But like I always got the sense that to some degree they are listening, because wasn't Sam invented because the community thought the zombies were saying Sam? Well, so right,
that's the thing. Back then, I mean, we know that they had crawlers on our forum. Like that was like, I say human crawlers. They had human crawlers on our forum, like following our stuff.
So I've always had
So that was definitely the past. I think for these days, I feel like it's almost the YouTubers are almost dictate the way things.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to that. I would probably say maybe it's more just representative of like if they've been downsizing, there's maybe some zombies fatigue. Maybe they have like 2 or 3 guys kind of like or maybe one person's in charge of like going through Reddit, the forums, the official forums, YouTube. But yeah, I've always been under that impression that because I remember hearing about like those who would lurk. And because wasn't there like a something that even denoted that they were affiliated with Treyarch, right? I thought there was like
there is like a vague, that brings something to mind.
And I don't know. I could be wrong, because it's not like these things are, like adding robots is like, whoa, that's a, game changer. But I've always just felt like knowing that and then seeing people suggest things and then things pop up in the game. I've always sort of had this sneaking suspicion that to some extent they are listening. But
yeah,
who knows for certain?
Man, you got to wonder, like the irony of the fact that the whole series itself is called Black Ops, and it's all about behind the scenes work, and and everyone out here, we always hear about leak. It's some QA guy, it's a developer, he's talking with a YouTuber, and that's where all these leaks are coming from. I wonder if there are any leakers in our community leaking back to Treyarch. Like people who aren't like people who are trusted people over there, people who are trusted people over here, they know they're not going to leak back to us, and they're basically incognito amongst us,
like double agents.
Exactly. I mean, and they're they're on the payroll maybe because they're probably just friends of the devs, especially the OGs, and they're just really trustworthy people, and maybe they're just leaking this stuff back to them and kind of taking that weight off the devs.
Yeah, I'm sure to some extent it's like symbiotic, where maybe they have a vague idea and then they're like, oh, the community also expressed interest in this, because it's just also weird to like where some of the ideas actually came from. With there was something with Mob of the Dead that I had, and I can't remember it now, but there was like, especially with certain places that are teased or that maybe aren't explicitly stated, that then the community kind of like surmises like, oh, this is where the next map is going to be, and then the next map is that, and it's like, well, how much of it was really like pre-planned? I
Brad Zachback and I were talking about dang it, the underwater city. In fact, it's probably better that I just keep it that way. I was calling it the Black Lab map. Did you
Okay.
see that conversation?
I saw bits and pieces, yes, of that.
It kind
Yeah.
of it kind of blows my mind that we haven't seen something like that from Treyarch Zombies yet. I
So
mean, Advanced Warfare
yeah.
went there, but not Treyarch. And Radzak Pack almost convinced me yesterday that, in fact, I think he has. I think I want to see the Black Sea Lab
Mm,
idea come to fruition, but not the traditional idea.
yeah. Well, speaking to the traditional idea, which it would have been interesting to see where they went with chaos, because that was like another kind of example of like where I thought they were sort of listening to the community, where they started to bring back some of the elements that were lost in Aether, and
Yeah,
everyone was always talking about like an Atlantis map, and I was like,
yeah, that's what I'm referring
I
to.
know like the next map was probably going to be like the Library of Alexandria, but I'm like, there's no friggin' way that we were not going to Atlantis in Chaos, and yeah, it's interesting now again with what everything's going on behind the scenes where that leaves those sort of like plot points, um, because there are places that I feel like should have been going to. You know what was a good example? I think Moon, because you go to Area 51. I
Yeah,
remember back in World at War. I mean, obviously Area 51 isn't like, it's not like that hard of a guess, but there were talks of like having an Area 51 map. And I think that was even like after, because it was the whole like map pack 5 or something like that. Where were we going after Darius? And
hmm
like Area 51 was circulating for like a long time, and that was the final map of the next game, or it was in the final map of the next game.
dang,
Because
that's a lot of weight, and then see that come to fruition.
so it becomes like its own mythology. Like I can't remember, like did we suggest this? Was it because we were sort of primed by Treyarch, or is it both ways? It's
Who knows? And actually, I gotta say this. I haven't spoken too loudly about it. I'm not a big fan of Chaos, but I will say this about Chaos: the point that you made that it's almost like, and speaking of like distilling things, like boiling them down and taking what's left,
mm,
it's almost like the things that got boiled out of Ether, which I was really hoping wouldn't show up in Ether, kind of like the mythological direction we're going. I know a lot of people love it, so
yeah.
not going to
Well,
yuck
see, I
someone's
love
yum there.
that.
Yeah, it's a thing for a lot of people. I mean, but are you picky about whether it's in Ether or whether it's in a different storyline?
I mean, ideally, I know people are gonna hate me for this. It's interested to see if there was some crossover, but if at the end of the day they had their two storylines, that's fine. But now that like I feel like I could go to bed being like, okay, Ether departed, but although I will say Classified and Alpha Omega did kind of bring things back, because it's not even so much the like it has to be adhering to a certain mythology, but it seemed like there was one more degree of separation with that
Hmm.
whole sort of inspiration from like history and conspiracy theory and mythology, like the whole like apothecons and the keepers sort of being the real people and everything but name. And I think there was even talks about like the alchemy symbols, and it's sort
Yeah,
of like, yeah, there's like the black sun, but they're all kind of like, I mean, I'm not an alchemist, so I don't know, but it just seems like the new symbols, like the apothecon language, is like all sort of made up, where it's just like one step further than just being like, we're going to take this Nazi conspiracy theory about like the Die Glock or something, and then
exactly.
now there's like an ad, and that's what I think really I miss. So I wouldn't be upset like if Chaos stuck with maybe more like classical stuff, but it's just that element of like being closer to the source material. I felt like they kind of departed, and I wonder if maybe that's why they wanted to do that with Chaos, where it was like, I
To
guess
be
this was
closer
maybe,
to the source material.
yeah, maybe it just seemed like what Blundell and I guess was it Craig Houston, like if they were to do zombies, this was like their take on it, because I know there was also like I still don't even know like the whole backstory of, I know it was Jimmy Zielinski and Blundell
I
was there,
I
and
think it's Jimmy and Craig Houston who are actually
you know what,
more
yes,
on the historical slash scientific train, and more Blundell who is the kind of the mythological,
yeah, okay,
fantastical kind of guy. I
yeah,
think that's what rumor has it, anyways.
no,
That's
no,
always
it's
the meme
definitely
was that he likes castles.
yeah, that's true. Um, no, because Craig has always been there from the start with the writing, and but then I remember that was like the brief aside. That was another thing that happened during World at War. Was like, is the campaign team working on Darius? Like, you remember that whole argument of whether or not the campaign team was or wasn't working on zombies?
Oh my god, yes, that's right.
And I still don't freaking know like what the hell that was. If like I know Blundell did work on Darius, but it's like to who definitively had the most impact. But yeah, I think at the very least, whoever it was, Chaos, I think, was their take on zombies and maybe distilling some of those elements. But yet, even Jimmy Zielinski, like from the very beginning, they had some like they had a lot of things that were just rooted in like conspiracy theory and history. So yeah, I don't know. Something happened.
I think that was definitely. I think that was Zielinski and darn it, I forget what the other guy is. His name is an R. It starts with an R. Dang it, I want to say Rizzo, but that's a YouTube guy who's been doing things forever. But yeah, he's still there actually. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was in one of the interviews this year. It's like one of the first times he showed up on camera in about a decade. But he's been there all along, and he was buddies with Zielinski, and so the fact that he's kind of back in, up there especially with Craig Houston, I think that's why we're seeing more of the historical element. But that boiled down the distilling of the two different directions, and Chaos, I mean, was apparently there. It has a cult following, which I think is great. I mean, in itself, like if that gets its own cult following, that has that feeling for its members, that's just like, this is near and dear to us, the way that Ether is to those of us who are with Ether. We'll have crossovers, who appreciate both, but yeah, like I think that's great for them. And if they needed that, they needed that Coliseum map. I mean, there was talk of a Coliseum map, like
I know, yeah,
back during Origins,
which I almost feel what's probably going to happen to the Chaos is it's just going to become like Victus 2.0, where like 2-3 years down the line, everyone's like, it wasn't that bad. And
yeah,
and like I think 9 was, I enjoyed that map, and it's because this sort of gets me on like another side rant where it's when Treyarch canonizes gameplay, that's like such a can of worms, because then I can't distinguish what is or isn't true, because there's so many things from the Chaos story that are implemented into Aether, and it's like you could easily just say, oh, it was just for sake of time. But when Treyarch goes out of their way to acknowledge the chalk drawings on the wall, which
they do that in Chaos.
Not well. Okay. So,
you mean traditionally they always have?
Yeah. Traditionally, like when they acknowledge something like that, and then I think in Chaos it is sort of acknowledged, because it's like it's
gift from honestly, the gods kind of thing.
Kinda. I mean, Chaos is just essentially another version of Aether. Honestly, it like Prima Materia, it essentially functions like it could just be another name for 115, and the whole thing is that there's like these alchemical symbols that are on the wall, and then the guns come out from them, and it's like the whole like temporal displacement thing going on, and it's like, okay, so it's because they
it sounds like they're leaving the door open to later tie it in or something.
Yeah, I think that's I still don't like the rumor, was Mob of the Dead intended to be a part of Aether or not? Because there's that's another thing that bothers me, because there's the whole Nikolai, when Arthur says he hears Nikolai, and then there's Samantha's lullaby that plays. Yeah. It's like, I don't. Yeah. So,
just questions that who knows, man. That's just mind blowing.
Yeah, I think they're gonna go back on it and tie it all together, just because essentially the crossover between Chaos and Aether was Nightmares. That I mean, I enjoyed the campaign, even though it was just like a.
You think that's crossover between Aether and Chaos?
Thematically speaking, because
in the sense that the whole, like the gameplay elements and everything.
Not the gameplay, but like the overall story is like two deities who I think
it was a deity in Nightmare, wasn't it?
Yeah, there were two deities, and I think they oddly enough they changed their mythological like background, because I don't think it's true to who they are in mythology. But anyway, the point is that it was two deities based on was it the children of Nox or whatever in Greco-Roman mythology. But I think one was like fear. I forget. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. But the whole thing is that they're responsible for this like outbreak of, it was the combination of Nova 6 and 115, and
Yeah.
they somehow took advantage of that and caused like a zombie outbreak, which is basically like the two main elements of chaos, where you have sort of like that weird supernatural mythological element, and then you have like the sci-fi, because the whole thing is what did they say, like it's like Nova 6115 or something like that it's called.
Yeah.
And it's just such a weird, yes, it seemed like it was definitely put together at the last minute,
Hmm.
but what's so weird about it is that it does take a lot of elements from Aether. Like they have like I think the Apothecon enemies spawn. I mean 115 right then and there is explicitly mentioned. So it's like I have no clue what to make of nightmares.
Wait,
And
so are you talking about like the lightning bugs or whatever those things are called from
yes, yes,
Shadow?
yes, I think the insanity elementals or the meatballs or whatever they were called, and I
That's
always,
right, insanity elementals. I
yeah,
forgot about those things.
I always, is it the Margwas, right? The
Margwas, yeah.
Yeah, that they're in that too, and it's like, oh, okay. And like then the other, I know I'm going like on side rants, but there's always that
Uh,
weird slash loose connection to campaign, and now campaign has had connections to chaos, and blackout may have some connection to campaign, which is just like at this point I think it's sort of bullshit when Treyarch's like, no, everything's separate. It's like, no, it's not.
oh my word.
Because you
So
remember,
many.
yeah, the intel stuff from Black Ops, where it talks about the like Doris and retrieving the
Yeah.
and
Well,
it's like,
that's. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was like, but that's not that, you get that in the campaign. Like you unlock those intel things in the campaign, and I think if I recall, most of those intel briefings are about events during in the campaign universe, and then there's just this like weird throwaway reference to zombies, but I feel like it's more than a throwaway, and they explicitly reference like, didn't they say Reznov's brother or someone was there, or something like some like siege to get Doris, I forget what, but there's
Yeah.
there's a
There's a
lot
whole
of,
there. Yeah, there's a whole briefing on the we call it the Deriza massacre.
yeah, which like I still to this day don't know, and the Black Ops terminals have always been one of the most mysterious things. uh
Well, I'm with you on that. We were talking about this. Maybe it was even today. It was either today or yesterday. The idea that the two are related. I mean, I'm of the opinion that the Black Ops campaign and the zombie storyline proceeded side by side all the way until the end of Black Ops 2,
mm,
because I'm completely with you on that. I mean, the intel in Black Ops in no way contradicts with anything in the zombie story. I don't from the original Black Ops. There's no contradiction there.
and
Black Ops 2. Go ahead.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off what you were about to say.
No, I mean the thing was Black Ops 2. None of the zombies maps in Black Ops 2 pick up until the campaign's already over. So the campaign runs through 2025, and so
Yeah.
the zombies maps that come after that, the follow are they're all after the campaign, and the campaign actually you have a fracture in the campaign because the campaign goes three directions
Hmm.
depending on the choice you make. So I think we see a fracture in all of them, and that all of them all may be related, but that they were united until the end of Black Ops 2.
I think once they brought like the multiverse thing into question, the just into the series, yeah, you probably have like, to varying degrees, everything existed in like the campaign timeline was like a very diluted zombies timeline or
Yeah.
something like that, and um yeah, because then there's, I remember the talk in Die Rise, right? They have the Chinese soldiers from the campaign, and it's like, is that just reused assets, or like that's like odd? Then I'm really interested in the Black Ops 3 campaign. I mean, I love the other ones, but like I went in being like, it's more futuristic, but the overall story was cool and seemed like
Hmm.
it kind of had a connection to, especially now with all the Broken Arrow shit. But
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of it revisiting it in that way.
yeah, because Corvus is essentially what happened at Broken Arrow, and
Yeah,
that
that's
was,
true.
and then they're connected to Nova 6. That was the whole. Um, but what's really interesting is there's like the theory that the campaign that you play in Black Ops 3 is like out of order, and there's like an even sort of more cryptic maybe just because not many people are looking into it, but there's something off about the campaign in Black Ops 3, and I think it's when every mission starts, there's like the like intel debriefing or whatever. If you it pops up so fast, but if you were to like screen cap it and look at it, it tells
Yes.
a story and it seems like it's out of order. Plus, there's the whole forest that where Corvus is in, and it's like I don't know. It's interesting now that Black Ops 4 is technically a prequel to Black Ops 3. So there's still been no like resolution to what Black Ops 3 is. And now if we get a reboot, like I remember there were some really weird leaks about like one of the installments involving time travel, and at this point I'm just inclined that like yeah I'd probably believe it because the next game, which supposedly I think takes place with like the duration of like the entirety of the Cold War, I wouldn't be surprised in a very Treyarch fashion if they wrap up the plot points of Black Ops 3 through some weird time traveling that happens in like the next game.
Oh man, yeah, you're really persuading. Because I haven't. I was very disinterested in the Black Ops 3 campaign. I know I was trying to keep up with zombies so hard back then that I did the campaign stubbornly, but more as an aside than anything. And those 6 hearts in the forest at the end. Oh my god, dude! I was 4 a.m. when I finally finished that thing, and I was so tired of it. Like if there was any information there, it was going over my head I was just trying to burn the hearts.
Yeah, there was like I think the masterpiece of Black Ops 3 was really behind the scenes because sometimes remember like some of the voice acting and some of the animations
Yeah.
in the game were a little rough, so it was you really had to like look behind. And I think one of the other problems is that the characters in the multiplayer are now included in the campaign, and then that makes me wonder what does that mean for the multiplayer maps, because the three, technically
Yeah.
three, because what's really weird is the first map takes place, I think they said there might be some like minor error in location, but it supposedly is concurrently with Der Eisendrache. And I don't know.
Dar
Der
Daishiden?
Schatten, yeah,
Der
yeah,
Schatten.
yeah. Because I always think like Der Schatten my pants, but
Exactly. I was trying to figure out because I knew there was a pun about someone talking about it being trash, but that never really happened. No one really, trash talked it, so that's good.
yeah, and you can hear old Primus talking. So it
What?
you can in the robot if you go to their I don't know if I can't speak to whether or not it's new audio, but you hear them speaking over the like the radio. And I think they said was it on the official website that the like actual story is like a time portal or something opened up and send the specialist back to Der Schatten. So like I feel like regardless Der Schatten happened, but now are the actual specialists involved in this? And
Oh
then to
no,
make it
please.
even worse is that the other map, there are 2 maps. There's Artifact, and then I forget what the other one is. It's shit. Anyway, it's basically like a supernatural kind of like a museum where this organization
That's right.
goes
Yeah.
around, and they're like they're like this group of archaeologists that collect like occult objects. Well, the map itself was the first one was about finding a chaos statue, like there was the statue of Odin, and there was like a weird story behind it because when the map begins there's like a helicopter that gets like shot down, and then you can hear people talking over the radio. I think one of them is just with cause I think is it like Iceland or Greenland or something, but they're talking about like one of which I think is just someone discussing because like a pipe, I think like an oil pipeline or something is blown up, but there's also people from the, I forget what the group is called, but like the archaeologist group, and they're trying to reach out to the people who were killed. So there's like a weird backstory behind it, but it feeds into the next map, which is sort of their home base in Louisiana, where they have all these artifacts from like their digs, and it includes a shit ton of stuff from the Aether story.
So this
Like,
is like
this is a multiplayer map.
a multiplayer. That's a lot of story behind a multiplayer map.
Yeah, it's but like long story short, it's just some organization that collects occult artifacts, and then
Yeah.
in one thing they get like wiped out, but then somehow they manage to I think bring it back to their museum in Louisiana. But the museum features a replica of the MPD. There's Transit and Ted. there's the transit bus. There's the bus driver Ted. There's a section of Verrucht, which is just so weird that they keep reusing Verrucht assets.
Yeah, the most overused assets in the world.
And what's really weird is that there's a narrator. You go around, and if you press like you're almost going through a guided tour in a museum, they talk about each of the maps. So there's they talk about what was it? Why can't I think of the name? In transit, it begins with an H, right? It's the Hanover. Is Hanover?
Oh yeah, Hanover. Yeah.
Yeah, they talk about like a town, mysteriously disappearing and all this stuff, and like their musings on what happened, which is weird because
I thought that was I thought that'd be a great contribution. And honestly, the reason I like that so much, and Mike, goodness, I guess we should probably wrap this up. This aside podcast that didn't happen. I think I'll release this because it's been great. But yeah, I think one of the things that kind of made that, when I heard that, there was a little bit magical to me, was that it felt like throughout Black Ops, and this is one of the arguments that the campaign and the zombie storyline go hand in hand in Black Ops, is that so much of Black Ops happened in a very clandestine way. Like no one knew they were at Shangri-La. Yeah. No one felt the effects of that. They were just there in this very sort of quiet way. Classified was a cover-up. Ascension was overrun and abandoned, and then probably covered up by the Soviets, because that would have been an embarrassment,
Yes.
Because that's what the Soviets always did, and presumably. And then what else we have? Kino's an abandoned theater. Everything was abandoned. Nothing that affected the outside
Moon. Yeah.
Up until Moon, which is what changed everything.
Yeah. My conspiracy about Moon is the Easter egg is called, or the achievement, right, is the Big Bang Theory. Mm-hmm. And, like Monty's comment about everything sort of being like a mirror and then it's shattered with a hammer. I feel like the multiverse was actually created at the end of Moon.
I've been with you on that train since the moment Milo said, yeah, it's definitely a multiverse, by the way.
Yeah.
I was in a pleading argument with him. I was like, no, I was like, surely, you in your most recent video, you said it was a multiverse. And he's like, yeah, it's a multiverse.
Yeah.
Said, no, it's not.
But I think the good thing about that is it wasn't always a multiverse.
Exactly.
Which I guess makes it really thematic to the story of like how they literally like destroyed the fabric of space and time. Yeah, that's why I think afterward, you can have like the Black Ops campaigns running simultaneous with all the other, Aether storylines, which, I mean, I always kind of bought into when they said Aether and Chaos weren't connected. It's like, well, how do you define not connected? Because the comic books are actually a good example, right? You can have two different comic books that take place in the same universe, but the stories have no connection to each other, but they're still within the same universe. Or is it like, well, actually, all the comic books have crossed over with each other, like even DC and Marvel. But is it like something that's just not in the same plane of even like thought or whoever conceived this story? Like there's no connection at all. Because, I mean, you could easily just say, like, it's a pocket of the multiverse or some stupid shit like that, which it seems like they're doing anyway.
Doors are always open. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. This has been a special edition of Theorists Think Out Loud for 50 minutes, and we just did 50 minutes. So if you listened through this whole thing and enjoyed, hey, I was about to say drop a like, so why not go ahead and say that? Drop a like. This is the CODS Forum YouTube channel. It's a community thing. We do it as much as we can whenever we can, and you're one of us, so come join us at the forum anytime. CallOfDutyZombies.com. This has been Matt's with me. Thank you so much for joining me, Matt's.
No problem.